Welcome to LifeTalk with Mariette. I am Mariette. This show is about the life lessons that shape us, what I've learned, what I'm still learning, and how we grow through challenge, awareness, and purpose. I will share personal insights to motivate and inspire you, and sometimes invite guests who do the same. At its heart, LifeTalk is about real stories, real growth, and meaningful connection. This is LifeTalk with Mariette. Motivational, inspirational, full of heart. Enjoy the show. Hello and welcome to LifeTalk with Mariette. I am your host, Mariette Camera. Healthy cooking made simple is the topic today, and it is part of our Conscious Living 2025 series. Healthy cooking is about joy, not stress, with a few fresh ingredients and the right touch of seasoning. Every meal can become both nourishing and delicious. Healthy cooking made simple invites you to see how easy it is to bring flavor, wellness, and confidence into the kitchen, and how the smallest steps can make the biggest difference for your health and happiness. Because when you understand your food, you understand your health. It's that simple. And cooking is one of the easiest ways to care for yourself and the people you love. We have invited Shakeema Romero, a passionate entrepreneur, educator with a degrees in culinary arts, public health, and a master's in elementary education. We're in the best of hands going forward. Shakeema is from Fairfield County, Connecticut, and I'd like to welcome you to the show, Shakeema, and thank you for being here today.
Hi, Mariette. Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here today.
Great. So today we're diving into why cooking knowledge matters, the connection between food, health, and independence. Hands-on, trusting yourself, building confidence with spices, tea, and simple techniques. Also teaching youth and adults, passing on skills that last a lifetime and strengthen families. And food as community change, how healthy cooking uplifts households, neighborhoods, and cultures. So let's get started.
Yes, definitely. You touched on a few topics that I mentioned about why is it important for all of us to know how to cook and have cooking skills and knowledge. And one of the most important things is of course that, I believe everyone should know how to make something for themselves in order to eat and survive. But it's also going back to just family traditions and culture and identity, when we are able to make foods that represent us and reflect, our beliefs. Not only are we saving money, we're eating better. We know what we consume. We know what we're putting into our foods and feeding our families. So I think it's important for all of us to know have basic cooking skills and knowledge.
It's about gaining control.
Correct.
That's what it's all
Definitely.
about. And the truth is, a simple pan of roasted vegetables, chef, with the right spices can taste like a gourmet dish. And growing up, I was quite good in the kitchen because I was involved every single day, the cooking rituals and everything. My mother worked, and I had to prep the food, and I had to have it done in time. And when it was time to eat, I had to have everything done. Now, she did not involve me in the shopping or growing vegetables in the garden. So, next question, Chef. How does cooking at home connect to better health?
You just mentioned, growing up and you having to be the person to help out your family. But for me, I was the eldest child. So, seeing my mom cooking and being in the kitchen during family dinners, holiday traditions, I was able to just get a sense of, this is important. This is what bridges our family together. Um, and I saw that growing up, it's just something that I've moved forward and seeing that not only is it bringing our family together, but it's something that we enjoy doing together. So whether it's me cooking with my mom or now cooking with my children, I'm able to just pass on what I've learned from my, my mom and my grandmother now onto my kids. So I think that we all should know what we're consuming, especially in this day and age where, we're not really sure where our foods are coming from, where it's growing, and things like that. However, once you're not only, like I said, it helps us save money. We're busy. Everyone is so busy these days, practices, schools, everything. And just once a week, if you can just put together something for the family, I think that will help us all be a little bit healthier.
Right. And you're almost ahead of me because most of us are too busy to cook.
We're
And
busy.
I
Yes.
understand that. But what is your message to the people that are too busy to cook? That mindset. What's your message, Chef?
I completely understand. I have young kids that are between schools, practices, games, everything. It's definitely overwhelming. However, I know we're all busy. We're all trying to juggle just 24 hours every day. My message is just set a little time aside. Just set 30 minutes, start small, start simple. It doesn't have to be something that's elaborate. It can literally be a pan of chicken, a pan of something that you can just pop into the oven, and you have that for the week so that, when you're busy, you can just pop it out, microwave it quickly, and it's something that you've made, something that's healthy, as well as it's convenient.
So, in other words, you're suggesting, Chef, that at least once a week you should be cooking for your family. Is that what you're saying, or am I not understanding this
No,
correctly?
correct. You're absolutely right. If you can take 30 minutes, just take 30 minutes. That's all I'm asking. 30 minutes a week and I buy in bulk. I tend to buy in bulk because, like I said, I
Mm-hmm.
also have children in a family. I get like this weekend, I roasted some chicken and that will last me at least 4 days. And
Mm-hmm.
when I do things like that, not only is it saving me time, but it's saving me money. I know like for a lot of us, we're busy just trying to make sure that the kids are getting to where they need to get to, and ourselves as well, getting to where we need to get to, in a timely manner. And not all the time we want to stop at McDonald's or something like that, where yes, it's convenient, but one, it's expensive. Two, it's not fulfilling, it's not satisfying, and it's not healthy. But if I have something that I've popped into the oven, took 30 minutes, and then I just have it in my fridge, I can pull it out when I want to, that
Mm-hmm.
definitely saves me time and
I
get
love
me
that
what I need.
because I find, and I don't eat out because I do watch my weight and I'm on a weight loss program. So I cook everything at home. And I find when I eat chicken, whether it's chicken breast or chicken thighs, I can make more meals out of it because a roasted chicken in the oven or chicken parts, I can be very creative with it and I can make chicken salad. I can make another casserole from it. There's a lot of things and a lot of things I don't even know yet. Good thing we have you in the house, Chef. So the takeaway is 20-minute meal prep at least once a week. It seems a little, it seems, what do they do? We really give them a free pass to go out and get these prepared meals or to stop in restaurants and spend money. Do you think it's adequate just once a week to cook?
Well, for me, it's all about starting where we are. If you don't
Mm,
have a lot of time, you don't want to do meal prepping for 2 hours. But
you're
if you
right.
can get you
Yeah.
30 minutes of just, let me just get 30 minutes in, and as I'm getting better and it's working for me and my family, then I can increase my time. But if you don't want to add too much to your plate where you're overwhelmed or you're going to say, forget it. Just start with 30 minutes. Start with something that you can prep for 30 minutes, some chicken breast,
Mhm.
steak, fish, whatever it is that you can just have in the fridge. You pop it in the oven, you warm it up, separate it for the week, and you make sides to go along with it. And that's definitely something you can do. And I think that's manageable for all of us.
I like that because I know when I'm tired, I'm coming home, I'm certainly not going to look for carrots and celery to chop finely because I want to decompress from the day and I'm not interested in chopping anything. So,
Exactly.
yeah. And when I don't take the time and when my mindset is not on food, I have created some very interesting dishes
Right.
and that I could hardly eat. I'm not exempt of it. Anyway, we have Chef Shakeema in the house today, and you're listening to Life Talk with Marietta. I'm your host, Marietta Camera. Next question, Chef, that I prepared. How do culinary arts and public health come together in your work?
Wow. So for me, originally, I did go to school to be a chef with the goal of becoming a nutritionist. I really wanted to know what I was consuming, what my family was consuming. Um, and that led to me to going to college for public health. And when I was looking, doing my classes, and it was showing me that it's so much more that goes into health. It's many things. It's environmental, it's society, that affects us as a community as well as affects us as individual. And once we learn that, we know, well, we might not have access to foods or healthy foods, but how can we combat that? How can we use the resources that we have to not only make ourselves better, but then eventually a community? I truly believe that a healthy community comes from a healthy individual. But a lot of times we're unaware. We think that it's more difficult than what it has to be, but it's really simple and just understanding
Mhm.
not everything works for all of us, but what it might work for your family and for your needs. And we just have to shift that, understanding that it's a lot of different things that makes us healthy. Once we understand that, we can move forward.
Right. And I also see your spice blends and teas are a bridge there because they're
Yes.
tools that make healthy food delicious and accessible. And very simple foods, um, you dress it up like a gourmet meal, and that makes a difference. But we have to learn how to use the spices. I came from a family where salt and pepper was it, maybe some nutmeg and some of the meatballs that they put in just a little bit. They were very, very careful with spices. Oh, not too much salt, not too much. Not too much pepper. Oh, no. So my mom's cooking was very bland, and my father was a little more advanced. He would use lemons and garlic. So my parents' generation, they were very, very cautious with anything. They didn't grow up with spices, so they continued that. And it takes courage to use spices. Anyway, I wanted to mention Chef can be seen at the farmers market in Brookfield on Fridays, and you probably have seen her already. And Brookfield on Fridays from 3 to 6 p.m. and the farmers market in Milford on Saturday from 8:30 to 12:30, and you get to taste her delicious muffins and everything else that the chef has. Chef Shakeema Romero. And before we go for break, I do have one more question. Can you give us an example of a life changed through your foods? We have plenty more to talk about the education with the kids, but do you have an example for us? Um,
The
where,
best example I have, sure.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying the best example I have is for myself. About 10 years ago, I was diagnosed with pre-diabetes and PCOS. And I personally just went on a journey of trying to make sure that what I'm consuming was the best for me. And you mentioned as far as, cooking with spices, a lot of times when we are all on a weight loss journey or we're trying to eat healthier, we're not sure what to cook or what we need to consume, and it can get a little mundane. So what I do with the spices, I switch it up. I use the spices to, like you said, be adventurous and just try new things. But it takes the guesswork out of what I need to put in. If I just have one spice blend, I can just sprinkle that on. And that's something else. I want to switch it up. I can add one or two different things, but the main ingredients, which is a spice blend, it just helps me say, well, I don't have to think about it. I can just put that on and that's my meal, and then switch it up for another day. So that's how I look at it, and that's how I was able to, change my own life and help others as well.
That sounds great. So, Chef, we're going for a quick break. We'll be right back. So don't touch anything. Okay. Any time is a great time for tea time because to me it represents a pause during the day or in the evening to sip, savor, and to slow down. Is Healthy Cooking Made Simple. Of course, she's a culinary educator. Of course, it's simple for her. We're students, we're learning. So read more on the chef on lifetalkwithmarietta.com. So, in our segment two, we're talking about hands-on, trusting yourself. Well, what does that mean? Well, a lot of people don't know how to use spices. And again, I want to mention, Chef, you can meet the chef, meet and greet, Farmers Market in Brookfield on Fridays from 3 to 6 p.m., Farmers Market in Milford, Saturday, 8:30 to 12:30. So here we go. Why is hands-on cooking different than just following a recipe, Chef?
We learn by doing. Most of us learn by doing. We can, food shows a long time ago, we would see people cooking with Julia Childs. We're following along. We're saying, well, this didn't work for me, versus we're looking at a recipe and we're following to the T, but it's still not going the way we expected it to go. But once we're doing it and we're hands-on, we're learning, well, let's try it a different way. There's a different tip. That's how we learn best. So definitely you want to make sure that you're getting for lack of better words, getting your hands dirty, putting your foot in. So that's
Right.
why I think it's
And
important.
here's, Chef, I had this brilliant idea. The light bulb went on over the weekend. And I developed a toolbox for life, cooking and baking basics. And I like to share with you and our audience. The essential skills are so important. And I learned that in my at my parents' home growing up. How to hold a knife safely and efficiently, the grip, the claw technique, and everything. Just moving around in the kitchen. You're holding a knife a certain way, and before you know, you're injured. It's because you
Right.
a quick movement, somebody's standing next to you, and before you know, somebody is injured. So my father and mother taught me basic common sense when you handle a fork, whether you take it out of the dishwasher or you have it in your hand and you have to uh, push the doorbell or the intercom,
Right.
always handle the forks, the knives, any pointing instruments downward. Chef, I like your take on that.
You're absolutely right. We do need to practice safe skills. I do teach children cooking, and a
Mm.
lot of times you'll see them just running with a knife or something like that, and we always make sure that it's safe. And adults as well. We don't want to get cut, usually sliced in any way. Knowing how to use the right tools can definitely keep us safe in the kitchen,
Mhm.
as well as just knowing which tools to use can also help us keep safe in the kitchen. You don't want to use like a hand towel when you're cooking, because that can, if you have a gas stove, that can catch a fire. So just knowing what's the best, and the
Exactly.
safest will help us.
Yeah, Chef, I knew exactly since I was pretty, I have to give myself a praise because my parents involved me in the kitchen, as I said before, but also common sense. My parents were very much about common sense. So when we had cooking classes in school, I was pretty far advanced because most kids had no idea how to. They even looked awkward just filling a pot of water with water and putting it on the
Right.
stove, or peeling potatoes or a carrot. Oh my God. There was awkwardness. Um, they didn't know how to season. They felt majority of the class felt very awkward. I felt like I was in my element. Of course, they were advanced in knitting in the knitting class. I never
Right.
understood the knitting part, and especially when it came to socks, they were already, over the heel, had already created the heel on the sock. I was still at the front. I never finished anything in these home economic things, especially in knitting. But in cooking, I have to tell you, I liked myself that way. However, that didn't advance over time, that whole cooking thing. I knew how to make two or three good things, and that's it. And that's where my knowledge is. However, just want to mention briefly before we go back and then talking about your spice blends. How to measure dry versus liquid ingredients is correctly. How to measure, how to use measuring spoons and cups, and when to weigh ingredients instead. So, and
Right.
how to
So,
read
yeah.
and interpret a recipe.
Mm.
I could never understand. Oh, what does that mean? I, I had problems with all of that. Chef, can you elaborate a little bit on that? Am I
Sure.
the only one, or do you
No,
see
no,
some?
not at all. You know, the thing is, for me, because I've always cooked, I've always been in the kitchen, it does tend to come a little easier for me, as that's just something I have growing up doing. However, for a lot of people, just understanding basic recipes, it can be confusing, especially if you're not good at math, or, science is just not one of your favorite things. And I said, cooking, you're creating something, but you're using your math skills without knowing math skills. And it's just basic things, just understanding, quarter, half, measuring, leveling, things like that. I help people break down and look at recipes and really understand, well, why are we doing it this way? What's the importance of us of following the recipe to a T, and understanding as you get better at it, well, how do I now change this recipe? But a lot of times people go in and they're following it, and it gets confusing, and then they do their own thing. However, if you follow it, you look at the recipe, and if it's something that you might not have, how can I substitute it? And the biggest thing we've been given is technology. A lot of times, quick Google, if I don't have this, how can I substitute something else? And I tell people, if you don't have everything that's on your recipe, that is okay. That just means we're going to just make it a little bit differently. You don't have to, be a scholar to follow a basic recipe, and use, like you said, common knowledge to make something delicious in the kitchen.
Yeah, one thing I learned, and I'm pretty proud of, confection sugar, and I use that a
Ooh,
lot for pound cake to decorate a pound cake. So if you take regular sugar and just put it in the blender, it turns
yep.
into confection sugar. You might have a
Yes.
better idea, but I thought it was, oh, I said, oh, I figured that one out. I do have to give myself
Yes.
the praise. So if you're out of confection sugar, don't jump in the car and go to your local grocer. Just put the regular sugar in and whip it through the blender, and you have confection sugar. I love that. That I really,
Exactly.
you know. So, but I want to go over to the spice blends and
Sure.
teas. So, they're like training wheels. A blend takes the guesswork, I think you said that earlier, out of the seasoning. So, um, let's start with the seasoning and then go into the teas. When
Sure.
you when you're a producer of all of this, share it with us.
Right. So one of the reasons I started making seasoning blends and spice blends, because I wanted to make sure that I had the time. I wasn't rushing to figure out all the different ingredients that's needed. So I came up with three different blends. They're as nat all natural, filler-free, preservative-free, using as many organic ingredients as possible. And you can use them as an all-purpose seasoning, as a rub. So that's how we, marinate and season our foods before, like if you're going to grill, or you can just add it in as you're cooking. And they're all unique. I call them all Caribbean inspired as well. I can tell you about each one. So my Calypso rub, perfect for seafood, poultry, pork, has a subtle hint of cumin, a little citrus. And that was my take on a Cuban mojo marinade. I really wanted to take those flavors of Cuba and make it into a nice blend. I also have my Jumbie rub, which is a Creole blend, has a little bit of heat. I tell people, if you like a little bit of kick, the Jumbie rub is perfect for you. You can add that I put that on everything, including popcorn. I do Southwestern style Cajun blacken. So anything that you may want to use paprika on, you can use that blend. And then I also have my Paradise seasoning, which is my take on a Virgin Islands seasoning. So it has all your herbs and veggies, but it also has spices such as cinnamon, nutmeg, mace, and allspice. And that too is also perfect on a variety of meats and vegetables.
Ah,
I
let's
tell,
let's talk about
go
this.
ahead.
Let's talk about this.
Sure.
So let's say you just steamed a little bit of broccoli, and I love bok choy. So
Oh,
we just steamed that in a little basket. What would you put on from your seasoning? And when would you do it? Would you do it before it gets steamed when the vegetables are on the basket or afterwards?
I would do it afterwards, just so that it's not everything is not steamed off. All the seasonings. I just will quickly sprinkle a little bit of my paradise blend on it once
Hmm.
it's steamed. If I'm making it for prepping for the week and I'm roasting it in the oven, I would take a little bit of like olive oil spray. I tend to use my olive oil spray a lot. And I would just sprinkle one of them on, pop it in the oven. For example, we talked about, switching things up. Say I wanted to do the same exact vegetables again, but I wanted a different flavor. I would just use a different blend with a little olive oil and put it in the oven. And that's it. It's as simple as a little olive oil, a little seasoning, oven roasted, and I have my meal for the week, or I have my side dish for the week.
Uh-huh. Question. Now, this is a real scenario now. This afternoon, um, I like to cook a roast and some potatoes because I got all the ingredients on Saturday. So Brussels sprouts, I'm going to
Ooh.
half them. I'm going to cut them in half. I have potatoes, cut them in half, and I have little baby carrots. Would you suggest now the baby carrots are cooked very quickly, so the longest are the potatoes and the Brussels sprouts. Would you put them in ahead of time of the roast? Because let's say I have a 3 pound roast, that's done in 60, 60 minutes, maybe a little less than that, medium rare. So I always make mashed potatoes to go on the safe side because I want to get, when the roast is done, but I love the roasted vegetables. What should I do with, the raw potatoes, putting them in the oven, the Brussels sprouts, and the baby carrots?
Sure. So
Uh,
what I would do, I would again, it's very simple, very easy. I
mm,
cook with a lot of olive oil, especially when I'm roasting my vegetables. Olive
mhm.
oil, avocado oil, or coconut oil. And all three of those have their own taste, their own distinct taste. So again, if you're switching it up, that allows you to choose which oil you want to use. Then for the roast, I would put that in, depending on how you said about 60 minutes
Yes, less than actually
or
50
so.
minutes. If you have a 3 pound roast, I kind of have that in my bloodstream already, and it comes
Okay.
out medium rare. Um,
Oh,
so the
great.
vegetables, especially the yeah, go ahead.
I would put that in about halfway through. So especially if you have like the small potatoes, I'll put
Mhm.
that in with preferably my paradise blend. Just sprinkle some of that on with a little olive oil, put that for about 20, 30 minutes, check it halfway through. So about the same time those vegetables will be coming out. And about 20 minutes after, give or take, towards the end, I would then add in my baby carrots and the other vegetables that don't require that much cooking.
Right, because the baby carrots, they be mush, they be
Correct.
they forget that.
Correct.
So I don't have the little potatoes. I have the regular potatoes, which I have to cut in cubes. And would you elaborate on how important it is to to cut everything evenly?
Right. So once you're cooking everything, the reason why we're cutting everything evenly is to make sure that everything is cooked at the same time. We don't want to cook some things bigger and then you go to eat it. And some people have hard food, hard uncooked potatoes when yours are, overly soft. So we want to make sure that we're evenly cutting as even, and it doesn't have to be perfect, but as close as size to each other as possible. And
Mhm.
once you put that in and you cut it up, put it in, make sure that your timer, I use my timer, use your kitchen timer. If it's something that you may forget, just quickly, if it's easier to set the timer and forget it than to forget it and then realize that you've overcooked your food. So I use your timer, you put it in, and then I have my carrots prepped, have that to the side. Right now it's also squash season, really perfect for just a
I love
nice
it. Yes.
simple
Yeah.
roasting.
Mhm.
And then yeah, you just take that out. Everything should be finished around the same time. And then with that, with their roasted meat, your veggies, you have that's a meal for one day. And then you can also prep that for the couple more days for lunch, for whatever it is, but it's already there.
Yeah. Chef, I have to admit I'm guilty for winging it many times, especially when I cook potatoes. My family loves mashed potatoes, and I make a really good mashed potato. I don't know, I just do. I don't know. But many times I don't know if it's my cooking style or if it's the kind of potato I buy. It's always different, the kind of potato I buy. So, but I don't pay enough importance to really cut everything evenly. I wing it, and I shouldn't be doing that. And when you make a nice mashed potato and you have residues of, uh, harder potato still in there, and you can't, the mixer will not smoothen it out. It will not. So you have little chunks of, I hate that, but that's what I'm doing. I'm winging it. You can't do that, right?
Well, honestly, I think as far as winging it and just trying something new, I think that's okay. But once you understand the basics, as you need to make sure that even if you did wing it, the size of your potatoes are the same, and you're also using the correct potatoes to make sure that your mashed potatoes are creamy and nice, such as russets, because you don't want to use a different type of potato for the wrong, meal, because that will also change the texture and what your the end result. So you want to make sure you're getting the right potato, you're cutting it to the right size, and then you can play around and say, well, today I want to add some garlic to my mashed potatoes, or I want
Mm.
to add, white pepper or nutmeg. You can always change that, but as long as you have the basics, such as cutting it to the right size, ensuring that the right, 30 minutes of boiling, that they're soft when you're testing it or you're tasting it before you make the final product, that all ensures a very tasty mashed potatoes at the end.
Right, that's what I was talking about.
Yep.
I'm winging it, not paying
Right.
enough importance to it, and that's why sometimes my mashed potatoes end up like that.
Yeah.
Because I'm winging. You should never wing it. You never wing it. But I also learned, and we might just before we go for another break, um, talk about potato salad. What is the best potato for a potato salad? Because you don't want the mush. I've done
You
that
don't
too, by the way.
You don't want the mush left on that. And that's the thing. There's so many different ways you can make potato salad there. And that's why I always encourage people to try new things. If, say, for example, you go to the farm or the farmer's market and the local farmer has one type of potatoes, you can ask them, you can say, what are these potatoes for? Have you ever used them before? What did you suggest using them for? And they also have a really good understanding of, the type of potatoes that they are. However, I always encourage people to try new things. So if you go and you don't see a potato that you typically use, try another one. It doesn't have to be the waxy potatoes that everyone is used to. It will just give you a different texture. Most people tend to gravitate towards the waxier potatoes just because they tend to be a little bit more firmer, and it doesn't mash the way, you can mix it up and it doesn't deteriorate the way that the other russet potatoes would for like mashed potatoes.
Thank you,
But
Chef.
ask your farm. If you have a farmer, if you have a local farmer that
Yeah,
you've built that, you just go to the farm and ask them, hey, what do you suggest using these potatoes for? What have you used them for? What are the texture like? And they are
right.
very helpful.
Oh, yes, Chef. I remember, um, and I got to go for a quick break now. I remember growing up in Europe, and Europeans, they love their breads, especially the Germans. They
Mm,
they need a good bread and good potatoes. And my
yes.
parents grew their own potatoes in their garden. And it was always a big discussion. Oh, this is a little too watery. This potato.
Right.
It was always these big, huge. I said, how interesting can potatoes be? As a kid, I didn't know better. But anyway, after the break, we're going to get right into teaching youth and adults. And I got my toolbox ready to ask more questions about understanding the importance of, well, recognizing between simmering, boiling, and steaming. But let's just go for a break. We'll be right back. Any time is a great time for tea time because to me it represents a pause during the day or in the evening to sip, savor, and to slow down. Marietta, healthy cooking made simple with Shakeema Romero, the culinary educator. Thank you for being with us today. And again, I'd like to announce that you can meet Chef Shakeema at the farmers market in Brookfield, Connecticut on Fridays, 3 to 6 during the season, of course, and the farmers market in Milford, Connecticut on Saturdays, 8:30 to 12:30. And Chef Shakeema, I'm so happy you're with us today. I can let out all of the boo-boos that I'm doing with my cooking, because I was never trained like a chef. And then you just life gets away, and you just keep doing what you're doing, and you could really improve it. And this is why we're doing the show today, not only teaching our children, but for us. We have some bad habits that we acquired over the years. We think we can cook, but we really can't, and we could do it better, tastier, cheaper if we listen to the professionals like our chef, Shakeema. So, why teach kids to cook early? Why is that so important, Chef?
Teaching kids to cook early is one of the best skills that we can give our children. It not only allows them to build their creativity, but allows them to see what's in their food. I think many times when children are picky eaters, they don't like certain textures, they don't like certain flavors, etc. But when they're seeing and when they've had a chance to be a part of it, that tends to allow them to be a little bit more adventurous with what they're eating and growing to be adults who are open-minded when it comes to foods and different cultures and different things that we consume, that they consume.
Well, I tell you, Chef, picky eaters in 2025. There was no such thing back in the 60s when I grew up that we were
No.
picky eaters. There was no such thing. As a matter of fact, you started discussing the shape of your food, like my daughter's kids when they were little. It had to be the chicken nuggets had to be in a dinosaur shape from or Trader Joe's, and my daughter bought it. Yeah,
Yeah.
Max had he hated vegetables. And my daughter, she had the whole gamut, everything healthy, and she's a very good cook. Also with spices, she knows her stuff. So she just went the 9 yards with the kids. I would never do that. And he
Right.
still doesn't eat vegetables. Yeah, he eats pizza. I don't know what he eats now. He's 22 now. Oh my God. But pizza's his big thing. Oh, he eats grandma's pancakes that he kills for. He goes out in a snowstorm to pick them up. That's what I'm saying. I'm trying to say for that on that. But please, what do you think about? I know it's hard for kids to do, with but it all depends on what's happened, what rules are in the family unit. Oh,
Right,
how
right,
can
right.
you ask a 1 year old, oh, do you like this? Or do you like that? We see it all the time on TikTok. I see the cute little videos. Oh, would you like this? You want a little piece? No. Yeah. What do you think about that? What's your opinion on that?
Well, so how I started teaching was I started as a traditional school teacher. I taught second grade for a long time.
Mm,
Then that took me into teaching cooking with children. But I realized, kids, they are their own personality. So even if most moms and dads say, you're going to eat this, they're like, I'm not going to do that. However, if we're inviting them in and we're starting with them as much as possible, just having them at the dinner table, we're cooking together, we're slicing together, we're chopping vegetables and peppers, they're like, try that. I always encourage my kids and my students, just try something one time. If you don't like it, you don't have to do it again, but at least you've tried it. And many times when they've tried it, they're like, oh, this is not what I thought it is. Or this tastes different than how I thought it would be. And they're willing to be a little bit more willing to try new foods. But a lot of times, what I see parents do is say, my kid won't eat that. So they won't even introduce it to them. They won't give it to them at all because
yeah,
they assume that they're not going to eat it. I
right.
teach kids cooking with a lot of vegetables. So we do a lot of a lot of plant-based type of cooking. I teach in inner city where a lot of times children do not have access, families do not have access to the foods, fresher foods. And fresh vegetables, unfortunately, is not something that they will typically gravitate towards. However, bringing them in and showing them, well, we can make a pasta salad with spinach and kale. And they're like, yeah. But once they're seeing it, they're doing it, they're making it themselves, and they're seeing their peers try it, then most of the times they're willing to try it at home or try it again.
Here's what my opinion is. Kids may tell their parents, I don't want it.
Right.
But they could have a different attitude toward a teacher or an outsider.
Yeah.
Or if they're in a group with kids because they don't want to be the one that says, "Oh no, I don't want this." So they're going along with it, and before you know it, they're telling them, "Oh, this wasn't bad at all. I kind of like this." So it's
Definitely.
yeah, it's maybe the pressure that they feel. Oh, they don't want to make waves in the group, you know. But what skills do the kids gain in kitchen? My take is confidence, math, science, and pride. What else um, can they gain in the kitchen?
Everything you just said, and then some, that willingness to be a little bit more independent, their
Yes.
willingness to try new things and not be as reliant on mom or dad or grandma to make them something, as well as, again, math skills. We're working on our math. It might not seem like it's math skills, but when I say I need a quarter cup of milk, they have to know what's a quarter cup of milk. They have to know what that quarter cup looks like. And if I said, well, suppose you need a half a cup and you don't have a half a cup, what can we do? So we're definitely building on our math skills. We're also building our fine motor skills because a lot of times we're cutting and, they need to be able to cut, and that takes a little bit of skill work, hold the knife properly,
Yes.
understanding how to chop. That's another fine motor skill. So all of those things we're working on, and a little bit of science. I always say we always have a little bit of science because cooking it's fun, but it's also you're creating something. And we know, if we're baking and we add a little baking powder, or if we don't add enough baking powder, what will happen? What's the outcome of that? So those are all of the skills in addition to the ones that you mentioned that the children are picking up on as they are cooking. And it doesn't have to be older children too. I could teach anywhere from kindergarten all the way up. And the little ones, the young ones, you'll be surprised at what they can do, what they're willing to do, and what they're willing to try to do.
I love it. Now, how about the teaching adults? What do you find with adults? Because they know everything. So
They tend to know everything.
they know
However,
everything.
and not only they tend to know everything, they're also bringing their experience, their background, their family recipes and things like that. So I always explain to them, there's so many ways to make the same exact thing. There's so many ways to make the same exact thing. For example, I went to an Egyptian restaurant this past weekend with my family, and they had a soup that had like a lot of greens in it. And when I tasted it, it tasted exactly like a soup in the Caribbean that we call callaloo. And it was just like, how is it that two different places making the same exact thing? And once people realize, family recipes come from, like you said earlier, people winging it and
Mhm.
coming up with something new. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's the bad way of doing it. It just doesn't mean that's the most basic and the it's not the only way to do it. There's multiple ways, but it's, you figure it out as we're cooking. Adults, for the most part, once they are cooking and they're coming to the cooking class, I think they're open-minded enough that they want to try their own, want to try something new, and they're willing to say, well, I learned how to do it that way, but I'm willing to try it your way as well.
Right, right. We're unlearning habits too. And
Correct.
if you want to expand your culinary portfolio, that's the way to do it. You have to
Right.
want to expand it. You have to, and I tell you, it's also cultivating our palates, really cultivating our palates when we work with spices and also knowing that's why they need to talk to you, Chef Shakeema.
Yes.
So, I see that. Now, can cooking strengthen family bonds? These days you never know, are they talking to one another? Or just are they getting together for a Thanksgiving meal or Christmas or not getting together at all? What's your take on that, Chef?
Oh, definitely. I think cooking is so many more than just eating. Like I told you before, one of the ways I started cooking was being in the kitchen with my mom, seeing her prepare everything for the holidays, as well as just everyday weekly meals. And because so many of us are busy, and rushing out, we're coming from home, from school to work, and then we have to go somewhere else. We have to go to practice or things like that. Just a little time for us to sit together as a family and say, hey, how was your day? Even if it's over something as simple as a grilled cheese sandwich. As we're sitting and we're talking, we're communicating with our kids and with our spouses and our family, that time was our time to unwind and share, and whatever is happening outside, that does not have to necessarily mean it's happening inside our home. So, taking that time and just, even if it's like we said, once a week, we start with once a week of us having a family meal, a family dinner, a family lunch, whatever it is, it gives us the opportunity to talk to each other, communicate, and share whatever it is that's happening in our lives.
You know, it all sounds so wonderful and so easy, and it's not. It
It's not.
it really isn't. And I
It's
see
not.
many times, even yeah, even in my own family, they come home, they had a rough day dealing with people all the time, and now they're coming home. Of course, they have something to eat, and then during dinner, you want to start a conversation. So, how's your life today? Yeah. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk. They don't want to talk at all because it's we life is not easy. Life
It,
is not easy, but it is possible that once people decompress a little bit. Now, I also find I should not or we should not be eating when we haven't decompressed yet. First of all, we can't even taste the food. We're just shoveling it down. We cannot enjoy the food, but many times our lunch hour looks that way. Our dinner looks that way. We just want to get it over with, and then we don't even know that we ate because we don't feel full. Because this mindful, not mindful eating, that's a whole nother show when you don't eat mindfully. And I've done that too.
right.
So but that's a whole nother show. Chef, we have to go for another break, so stay tuned. And after the break, we're going to talk about food as community change. So stay tuned. Anytime is a great time for tea time because to me it represents a pause during the day or in the evening to sip, savor, and to slow down. Chef Shakeema Romero in the house. And in our fourth segment, we're talking about food as community change, healthy cooking made simple. She's a culinary educator. So, again, thank you for being with us. And I still have a couple of questions on the toolbox, but let's just start. Um, you say food can uplift communities. How?
Oh, so many different ways. Increase health awareness, promote holistic health, help bridge and expand our local economies by supporting local farmers, sustainable actions such as, going to the farmers market and just purchasing here locally. Not only does the food just taste completely better, you enjoy your food. It takes that time away for you to say, well, I can't make it to the farmer's market, but maybe there's a farm close by, or
Hmm.
even growing your own food. But once we start looking at the ways that, we can make our communities healthier, one of those, like I said, is just starting from a farm, growing your own garden, having a small garden if you can. I really, mentioned earlier about meeting people where they are. If we're unable to go and have a big dinner every single night, well, let's start with once a week. If we're unable to get to the farmer's market, well, let's see if there's someone else who's growing something. There's a community garden or anything like that where I can know where my food is coming from. I can see what the ingredients are and how I can be a part of it. There's a lot of inequalities when it comes to food, especially in certain cities and towns. However, as we learn more about the different, organizations that have community gardens or farms and things like that, we're able to support them and increase our economies as much as we can.
Right. Chef, I want to talk about spiced teas now. Instead of drinking soda or milk or water, I'm watered out, even though I don't drink a heck of a lot of water, but I hate water. It has to be spiced, and I always put fresh lemon slices in there. I just bought some mint twigs, little mint yesterday, and I put it in the water because a big jug I have in there. But give me a break. I don't care. Oh, you can put fruit in there. Oh, you can dress it up, but I'm not excited about water. But I love spiced tea, cold or hot. Let's talk about spiced tea that we can have with our meals. Let's talk
So,
about that.
sure, one of the teas that I make is called bush tea, and it's an
Bush
herbal bush tea. Um, so in the Caribbean, what happens is we take a whatever flowers, trees, grasses, fruit, leaves, and we make it for whether it's medicinal purposes or whether we just like the taste of it. And we make it into tea that can be consumed hot or cold. And we can sweeten it, you can not sweeten it. You could drink it with your meals or without before, after they typically are caffeine free. But I make a blend called bush tea, and it has lemongrass, basil, soursop leaves, as well as a type of sage called baby sage. And I know you said you're watered out. One of the ways that we can increase our water intake is by adding things such as teas, such as adding lemon or even ginger, additional spices such as cinnamon, nutmeg, mace. All of those can be used for teas. Basil, one of my favorite teas is basil tea, very light, refreshing. But a lot of people just don't drink, those herbal teas like that because they're not either they're unaware or that they don't know about it. They
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 don't
think it
know. They
doesn't
don't know.
taste good.
That's why
Right,
we're
they're
talking about
unaware.
it.
Right.
Now, I
Mhm.
would drink more
Yeah.
because I love basil. I always have ginger root. I cook with everything. I put ginger in everything. I buy the ginger root and I love it. Lemon,
Yeah.
so everything. So I can't wait to try your bush tea. I love that. And I will drink more, but I've had it with water. I don't care what you slices of cucumber. I found that very in some of the wellness places.
Yes.
Besides just they put the slices, which is an interesting taste too. But I taste that once, I'm done. How can I get excited over slices of cucumber in my water? I have to tell you, it doesn't work. I have higher standards. My palates, mm, you know, they're not buying it. But I love tea. I always loved cold tea,
All
hot
right.
and cold tea. And
Yeah.
I love Lipton too, the black tea and everything, but decaffeinated. You just said something very interesting. A lot of people prefer the decaffeinated because if you drink coffee, if I drink coffee, let's say 4 o'clock in the afternoon, have my second cup, I can guarantee you it takes me a little longer to fall asleep. So in the
Okay.
morning, that's great. It gets my day going, and I do want to watch what I drink. And decaffeinated teas, that's something you offer as well, right, Chef?
Right. So you hit the nail on the head. You're tired of drinking just plain water.
Mhm.
However, teas, because there's so much variety, you can switch it up every day. So one day might, like you said, you might not like cucumber tea every day, or sorry, not tea, but cucumber water. But maybe
Mhm.
you made a light, refreshing basil tea that you can drink in the morning or in the afternoon because it's decaffeinated. And then the other day you can do a mint water and switch it up so that allows you to change your palate, change the taste of it, keeping the calories low and still being a little, adventurous with our taste buds, which
Wow.
is
And
very,
you're actually, this is a dumb question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. You actually make the tea from basil leaves, right? You just,
yeah,
well, yeah,
yes.
of course.
You steam it, correct.
Aha.
Never boil, steam. Yes,
Steam it. See,
yes.
this is, oh man, we can have endless shows. So anyway, going back to my toolbox for life, the difference between simmering, boiling, and steaming.
Yes.
Could you elaborate on that, Chef?
Sure.
Now, are you there? Chef, are you there? Can you hear us?
It's just a very light simmer. So you might do that with if you're, cooking rice or you're never gonna overboil it. Your leaves, your tea leaves, or any type of vegetable, you can steam those because you don't want to overcook them. Once you cook your or you over boil your teas, it tends to change the taste of it, tends to also taste the nutritional value of it. So we never boil our tea. We always steam it or steep it. Okay, so we basically let it boil. We bring the water to a boil. We put our leaves in, and then we turn it off and just let it steam and let the nutrients seep out. And then we're steaming our vegetables. So with the vegetable, it's steaming, but it's not directly in the water. So you
Right.
typically will put that like as some type of, you know, tool or that you put your vegetables in and it's touching the water, but it's not in the water and it's cooking it so it's not mushy. We never want to have mushy vegetables. So those are
No,
three
that's not good.
techniques. Yep. Three techniques that you can use. But they all serve different purposes.
Right. Now we're almost out of time, but I do want to ask you, how would you want to leave our audience? What advice would you give them before we sign off?
Sure. So one of the biggest things that I would like our audience to know is that cooking healthy or cooking plant-based, it does not have to be difficult at all. It doesn't have to be complicated. And you don't have to do more than you need to. We start simple. We start, like I said, 30 minutes a week, 30 minutes a week of meal prepping or making something healthy and let that grow. See how that works for you, works for your family. And then you decide, well, can this work for me? What do I need to change? And also, I encourage everyone to be adventurous with our palates, try new foods, try new ingredients, read your ingredients, read your labels, and say, well, I want to try this. I don't know what that is, but I can Google it quickly and say, what are the flavors of this? What will it pair well with? Don't be afraid to use technology as well to, figure things out or learn about a new food or ingredient.
Thank you so much. And I say, because I always have to put my 2 cents in, cook with confidence,
Cook with
season with
confidence.
intention. And for details or workshops, visit lifetalkwithmarietta.com. Because today on Healthy Cooking Made Simple, we learned how cooking knowledge gives us control over our health, how simple ingredients plus the right spices and teas can taste gourmet, why teaching both youth and adults build lifelong confidence, and how sharing meals can uplift whole communities. If you like recipes, workshops, or to connect with us, go to lifetalkwithmarietta.com. You will find everything there. Thank you for joining us and happy cooking. And thank you to our culinary educator, Shakeema Romero, for all you do. I enjoyed this tremendously. And thank you, Shakeema. Till next time, I'm Marietta Cameron.
Thank you.